And now, the CEO of the Telecommunications Industry Association, Scott Belcher.
Good morning. Good morning. Does your head feel like mine does? All I hear is "Carry on, my wayward son" over and over and over. They told me to be loud, but I'm a little bit worried about being loud because I'm afraid that some of you might leave. So I'm Scott Belcher. I'm the CEO of the Telecommunications Industry Association, and I know that if I had asked for hands to be raised about how many of you are members, many hands would go up, but I'm not going to do that. But I may do it at the end. I'm going to talk about just a couple of things. I'm going to talk a little bit about TIA, what we do, and why you ought to care. And then I'm going to talk about net neutrality. And I know you just heard a little bit about it. You heard more about it yesterday. I'm going to give you the inside Washington scoop on what's going on and how we're representing the industry and trying to make sure that we turn this issue back and get us back to where we need to be, which at the end of the day is we don't want to screw with the internet. We want what's called a light touch, and we want to make sure that we can continue to innovate and we continue to use the internet without without too much government intervention. I want to thank Gen Band for having me here today. This is great. I love Gen Band. They're a member of ours, long-term member of TIA, and a board member, and a true leader in the industry, and they're helping to shape the future of where the communication industry goes. So again, I want to thank Gen Band. So let me I'm going to start with just a little video. I'm a little embarrassed doing videos because the videos have been so good here. The marketing and production team for Gen Band are awesome. But TIA's also got its own video capacity, and so this is going to tell you a little bit about the organization and why be a member at TIA.
Hey, kitten videos are not cute. They're sinister weapons of network destruction. Think that legacy switch can hang on for another decade? Think again. You can't fight Fluffy alone. That's why we're here. We're the Telecommunications Industry Association, but you can call us TIA. We're here to herd these cats in the direction of modern, robust networks that drive innovation and growth, not just for our industry, but for the entire global economy. That's not hyperbole, folks. Last year, the communications industry in the U.S. spent $1.3 trillion. Yes, trillions with a T, accounting for more than a quarter of all global ICT spending, which will top $6.1 trillion by 2017. Add that to the expectation of a 13x increase in traffic over the next few years, and that's going to stress our systems beyond their current limits. Without aggressive action, the ICT industry will fail to reach its potential. That's what we're here for. TIA will help your organization wrap its arms around the top issues of the industry through the lens of markets, technology, and policy. Our government affairs team of experts will represent you in Washington and around the globe. We guide you through technology development, reaching into the future to give the industry a platform for what comes next. And when it's time to move on a technology, TIA is an ANSI-accredited STO, helping you to be part of driving open, interoperable technologies that will be critical to the success of your organization. Trust me, you want to be at the technology dinner table, not on it. And from over 20 years of research, we've been providing industry-leading market intelligence that covers the globe. Combine that with business development and networking events throughout the year, and you'll find no better place to understand and drive your business. That's the buffet of TIA: government affairs, technology and standards, market intelligence, business development and events, marketing assistance, and much more. All of which provides unparalleled total member value. For more focused solutions, we've built membership solution sets around leading technologies for organizations focused on one part of the industry. So take advantage of all TIA has to offer. We're here to guide you and the entire ICT industry to the network of the future.
So we actually got a little bit of chops in developing interesting and cute videos, especially with kittens. So as we said, TIA is kind of in the center of policy, business, and markets, and that's really that's what a trade association's there for. So we represent the industry in Washington, D.C., both on Capitol Hill, at the FCC, at the FTC, EPA, Department of Energy. and at the state level. In fact, right now we're doing a really interesting project. Interesting is all in the eye of the beholder. We're fighting a battle in California about tower standards. California wants to adopt new tower standards that apply the highest level of seismic controls on the towers. And it's really going to have a huge impact on our companies because of the cost that it's going to take to do that. And if you look at what's happened in recent earthquakes, and in fact, if you even go back to Fukushima in Japan, the cell towers really were the things that survived. So there's no need to really go that far. We also work on the markets. We've got market data studies. In fact, we've got a new one that's just come out looking at what the market looks like going forward in the United States right now, and that's recently on our website. We've got a paper on Internet of Things, a paper on 5G, a paper on connected vehicles, and then we've got a ton of work on marketing opportunities. We represent the broad cross-section of the ecosystem. It's not just proprietary hardware and software companies, and it's not just IP, it's not just the carriers, but it's really the cross-section of companies in the communications sector. As you all know, communications are changing, and it's evolving. And if you can tell me the difference between wired, wireless, cable, from a delivery standpoint, then you're a better person than I am, because it's all starting to morph together. And so TIA needs to represent that entire cross-section. We're also making a concerted effort to try to bring in new companies, because my experience in Washington, my experience in trade associations, is it's new, innovative companies that really change things and that disrupt the system. And we're at a time of disruption. So we need to make sure that we've got as good a cross-section of companies that we can. Not all are going to win. Many of our existing companies are going to go out of business. Many are going to look very different as we go forward. Many of your companies are going to look very different as we go forward. But that's what's so exciting about the time that we're currently in. So you can see from this slide, we're in the whole cross-section of the ICT value chain. And I'd rather move on. We are an SDO, a standards development organization. We've got a lot of the major standards that are out there. We've got the top standards in cloud and data centers, cabling, antenna towers, more than 70 committees working on a variety of technical issues. And we're part of the future, developing new opportunities for our members in new areas. If you've never been to the TIA offices, we've got a state-of-the-art office where we're showcasing our members' technology throughout. We've got a data center there, and in fact, in the fall, we'll be launching a new NFV trial location. So that's something you might want to talk to me about later. And then we have a number of opportunities to advance your business, whether it's meetings. I'll talk a little bit about our annual meeting in a few minutes. That's next in 2 weeks out in Dallas with the AT&T Suppliers Conference. We do regional meetings around the country on specific topics. This year we've done 5G, data centers and cloud, DAS, automated vehicles, and then we have a number of other opportunities for our members. One of the key things that we do, and you just saw an example of it, is we have a television studio that we make available for our members to do documentaries, to do case studies, and to do marketing opportunities. We've got over 161,000 unique viewers on our YouTube channel, and then occasionally we hit big, and we'll get a couple of, and then we'll really go from there. But this is a really interesting opportunity, and I think unique within the industry. There we go. Okay, so now here's what I really want to talk about. I really want to talk about net neutrality and why it is so important to us. But first, just to step back, what are we all about? So we're your organization, and what we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we drive continued investment. And how do we do that? We do it by making sure that we eliminate barriers that can get in the way of investment, whether it's inappropriate regulations, whether it's inappropriate laws, whether we can create incentives. Those are the types of things that we do to make sure that we're driving investment. And we want to make sure that we're technology agnostic. As a trade association, we can't pick technologies. We don't want to pick technologies, nor do we want the government to pick technologies. So we try to be technology agnostic. If the government picks a technology, a winner or a loser, then we have to do whatever we can to minimize that. And then we want to do everything that we can to spur innovation. And some of that is the ecosystem play. We see one of the really important aspects that an organization like TIA or any organization that you're in is to expose you to new companies, expose you to new technologies. That's how these companies get bought and sold. So, net neutrality. Net neutrality is a very important issue to us all, and it really doesn't matter what side of the debate you're on. When I took this job back in November, so I've been here 6 months, the first day on the job, I had a board meeting, and then President Obama announced that he thought that the internet should be treated as a utility and should be regulated as that. So on that day, I had to interview with New York Times, I had to interview with AP. 2 days later, I had to go do television interviews with Bloomberg and with Squawk Box. Kind of a crazy time and a crazy way to start out. But this issue is so important. And I need you to know that TIA's membership is divided on it. Not everybody is in support of keeping the internet regulated the way that it is. Some of our members are in strong support of applying Title II or applying the Telecommunications Act to the internet. But as a trade association, we had to pick what was in the best interest of the majority of our members, and that's how we ended up where we were. So what is net neutrality? I mean, what exactly? So this is a definition for net neutrality, so that you understand what we're talking about. At the bottom line, what we're talking about is no blocking, no throttling, and no paid prioritization. It's as simple as that. And nobody, we can debate about what paid prioritization is and whether that's a good thing or a bad thing. But I think everybody is in violent agreement that blocking, throttling, and inappropriate prioritization is wrong. And so we're having this massive fight that's having huge implications for our industry at a time where there's really nothing in debate, and at a time where there isn't anything broken. So what do the net neutrality proponents think is wrong? What are they worried about? Why are we having this fight? They're worried about big business, the internet service providers, becoming gatekeepers, making decisions about who, what, when, where, and how. The reality, though, is that there have been very few instances in which this has happened, or attempts for this. And every time it's happened, the system's worked. Whether it's the FTC, the FCC, or the courts, we've been able to stop these activities. So at this point, part of what the net neutrality proponents are battling is a perception of what could be wrong. So they're boxing at shadows. They also feel that there's insufficient bright-line rules for FCC enforcement. I'm not sure I agree with that, because if you look at the ruling of the appeals court in 2014, it made clear that Section 706 of the Telecommunications Act gave the FCC the authority to regulate the internet. And then the real question is, how much do we want the government or the FCC to regulate the internet? So far, they've had a light touch, very little regulation, and we have the best internet in the world. We spend 2 times as much per person in the United States than Europe spends per person. That's why we're so successful. They're worried that the wire and wireless carriers are treated differently, and that shouldn't be happening. And ironically, they're worried that because of the way we're currently regulating the internet, there is inadequate, insufficient investment in the infrastructure. And I do think that that's a bit ironic. If you look at what happened the last time the FCC attempted to regulate the internet in 2010, once that attempt was struck down, internet investment increased 60% over the next 4 years. In the United States, the carriers are investing $73 billion a year in the infrastructure, more than any other country in the world. So where's TIA on this? I mean, we have a position that's really pretty straightforward and consistent with what I've already mentioned. Don't pick technologies. Don't overregulate if you don't have to. One size doesn't fit all. Don't use a statute that was created in 1934 to regulate monopoly power industries and apply it 80 years later to technology you don't even understand. So how did we get here? How did we get to the mess that we're in? As I mentioned, in 1934, Congress passed a law. It was following a law that they passed to regulate the railroads. Then they needed to regulate the monopoly telephone companies and monopoly radios. That rule has been in place since 1934. It was updated in 1996. It's the same law, and it regulates verticals, regulates telecommunications, it regulates wireless, it regulates cable. Again, it doesn't make sense in today's modern age. In 2003, TIA actually drafted what we call the net neutrality rules that were ultimately adopted by the FCC. That's the kind of work that TIA does for you. We've now had 2 times in which the FCC has attempted to regulate broadband or to regulate the internet as a utility, to apply the utility rules, Title II of the Telecommunications Act, to broadband. Both times it's been struck down by the courts. Both times. And in fact, the Supreme Court even ruled on this in the Brand X case and determined that the internet is not a utility. So here we are, once again. And we're at a time in which, as I mentioned, President Obama came out of the woodwork and said that the internet ought to be treated as a utility. This was at a time that FCC Chairman Wheeler was trying to negotiate the grand bargain. And he comes from the industry. He knows what he's doing. And so he was shocked. I think we were all shocked when the president came out and forced his hand, because what we all understood is that Chairman Wheeler had a compromise position that would have relied on Section 706, which is a provision in the existing law, but would not have applied Title II. Well, his hand was forced, and in February the rules were developed and the rules were applied. So what's happened since then? Well, first of all, actually, before I tell you what we're doing now, let me tell you why we care so much. First of all, the current system isn't broken. It's working. Again, we've got if you look at what's happened since 2010, the last time that the FCC tried to regulate the internet, since then, speeds have increased by 250%. That doesn't sound like a broken system to me. Verizon adopted Fios and invested more than $24 billion to build out their fiber network. They would not have done that if they were worried about the system and worried about how they were going to be regulated. The system's not broken. The FCC's order will in fact result, and is in fact resulting in a decrease in investment. You've heard AT&T talk about it. I go around the country, I talk to my members. They're seeing changes in orders. They're seeing a scaling back. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't the carriers scale back in their investment in the infrastructure if they don't know what's going to happen and when it's going to happen? Because what's likely to happen is we're looking at the next 3 years, and you've got three scenarios. And I'll talk more specifically about each of them, but you've got one scenario that possibly you get a legislative fix. When will that happen? I don't know. Will it happen? I don't know that either. Possibly, we are going back to court, and we prevail again, and then we're back at ground zero. When does that happen? I don't know that either. The third scenario is you get a Republican president. And what's the first thing that the new FCC chairman comes and does? He or she comes and undoes this rule. That is uncertainty. And if you're a company trying to maximize your return on investment, deliver services to your shareholders as well as to your customers, you're not going to make massive investments in the infrastructure if there's uncertainty. In fact, Rob Shapiro, who was an advisor to the Clinton an economic advisor to the Clinton administration, has estimated that there's a potential that almost half of the investment in the infrastructure, $43 billion a year, will not be made because of this uncertainty. If they're not investing, we're not innovating. It's as simple as that. I mean, that's a cause and effect. And the thing that worries me the most is that this is a Trojan horse. So I accused the net neutrality proponents of boxing at shadows. And what I meant by that was, again, we've only had a few instances of bad acting, and those bad acting have been taken care of. So we've got this big vision. They have this vision of the big industrial complex managing the internet. Not happening. Well, we have this vision of big government managing the internet. And Chairman Wheeler will say, and has said, don't worry, nothing's going to really change. We're going to abstain from the application of most of the 100 pages of regulations that come with this rule. We're not going to apply those. We're going to keep our light touch. Well, maybe. But what happens when there's a new chairman? Do you really want the government to be setting pricing? You want the government to be setting locations? Do you want the government to be determining what's fair and reasonable? In fact, this isn't even a Trojan horse concern. One of my real concerns is in these new rules there is a requirement that new applications, new products and services be fair and reasonable. Man, I don't know what fair and reasonable is. I think it's a pretty subjective term. Neither does the FCC. So you know what they've done? They're going to set up a group of people at the FCC that will determine if new business practices are fair and reasonable. Really? Okay, so we want a couple of GS-13 bureaucrats telling you about your new innovation, about whether you should deploy that and whether doing it is going to be fair and reasonable and pass muster with the FCC. So what are you going to do? Are you going to go to them and have some bureaucrat decide whether or not your innovation is fair and reasonable and you should go forward with it? Are you going to ignore them only to be sued later by your competitor who says, well, wait a minute, this isn't fair and reasonable and you didn't even follow the rules? That's the kind of things that worry me. That's the kind of thing that why TIA cares so much. So what are we doing about it? We're working at all levels of the government, and we're working with a lot of important stakeholders. First of all, we've been working very actively with the FCC. Unfortunately, this is a religious issue. It's really not a technical issue, and it's actually not even a policy issue, because we are all in agreement about the main tenets. And so you've got half of the members of the FCC are in support, half are opposed. We filed a petition to ask them to stay their decision pending clarification of this, and not surprisingly, they declined to do so. We're working on the Hill. There's a potential legislative solution, a very simple legislative solution, which would be not to use a nuclear bomb, but to be specific and say, we don't like this action, this action, this action, and we're not going to treat the internet like a utility, and the FCC has the authority under Section 706. That's a simple solution. We can hit all of President Obama's requirements, but we can do it strategically and decisively. The problem right now is that Washington is broken. You've got Senator Thune is working within the committee, trying to get a bill out. Right now, there's no bipartisan support in the House. And what's interesting is if you're a Democrat and you're in support of net neutrality, now's the time to do a legislative fix. And that's the only reason that I feel somewhat optimistic, somewhat. I'm kind of pessimistic about this, but somewhat optimistic that there might be ultimately a solution. And the reason I say that is this is the Democrats' the strongest hand they're going to have, and they can lock these requirements into law right now because the Republicans will do the deal. In 2 years, in 6 years, whenever we have the next Republican president, this goes away, and the Democrats have lost it all. So if they were rational, and right now nobody's rational in Washington, but if they were rational in Washington, they'd figure out a way to squeeze as much out of the Republicans but do the deal and get legislation. Possible. The courts. Well, the courts, so TIA has filed a motion asking the courts to stay the FCC application. So we did it at the FCC, now we're doing it in the courts. US Telecom and others, AT&T and others, TIA and others have all filed suits. We're filing as what's called an intervener, so we're intervening because our industry has a unique voice. Our unique voice is really the implication of these actions upon our industries and our partners, financial implications. The carriers' main filing will be about the legal, that this is illegal and that it's inappropriate and that they violated the APA. But we have a different, we have something new and unique to add, and so we're going to continue that. Those filings, our filing will happen in the next couple of months, as will others. The cases will be consolidated. There'll be one case. We're trying to get the case moved to the District of Columbia because they've got the most experience with the Administrative Procedures Act, and we expect that will prevail, at least on most of it. But we don't want to do that. It costs a lot of money to litigate this stuff. And then we're trying to do a much better job with the public. We lost with the public. If you look at any of you have 17-year-olds, have you talked to them about this? They think you're crazy they don't want big bad industry governing the internet. They want the free internet. We lost the battle of the public perception. And shame on us, because we have a much more direct and compelling argument. And the reason I know that is you're starting to see companies like Google and Facebook, who were once strong proponents of net neutrality, backing off and saying, wait, that's not what we thought we were getting. We're worried about government intervention. We're worried about big government impacting the way we do business. And so we've got to do a better job telling our story, and we will. So with that, I'm going to leave you with one last video. If you're interested in TIA and being part of this movement, come talk to me. There's some materials out in the back hallway. If you're also interested in learning more about it, come to our annual meeting, which is June 1st through the 4th in Dallas. It's done in conjunction with the AT&T Suppliers Conference. You can find out all the information about that on our website, but let me give you just a teaser. And you can play the video, please.
Remember the days when you provided a box to a customer with your brand stamped all over it? Those days are quickly coming to an end. Now the question is, what's in the box? What's in the box has to provide value to your customers and find profit without getting buried under the avalanche of data in mobile transmissions and high-resolution video, all while playing in an open source and virtualized network landscape without becoming a commodity. This is a shift in our industry, and it ushers in a number of opportunities and challenges in areas like the Internet of Things, the future of mobility, and the evolving network infrastructure. And we're ready to tackle them at TIA 2015, the Network of the Future conference. No other event addresses the confluence of critical issues for ICT equipment manufacturers and the new world order challenging network operators. So, how are we going to do that? You'll get answers straight from our lineup of speakers featured in our keynotes, tracks, and workshops. Our 3 educational tracks are focused on the future, addressing revenue-enhancing opportunities for service providers and equipment suppliers, as well as ways to improve business for the customers of our industry. Track 1, Future of Wireless, Next-Generation Mobile Networks, a comprehensive view of the evolving landscape in wireless technology deployment. Track 2, Building New Services and Revenue in a Connected World, a study on how to identify new revenue opportunities by examining case studies. Track 3, Network Infrastructure for a Data-Centric World, a deep dive into the evolving needs of service provider and enterprise network infrastructure. On top of that, we've got Policy Day, your chance to hear from Capitol Hill policymakers and the administration, as well as government affairs experts from TIA and the industry. The conference will also host several pre-conference workshops, hands-on technology events, receptions, and other special events, allowing attendees an opportunity to hear from and interact with the best and brightest in the communications industry. And that's just the content. This is your chance to get face-to-face with thought leaders from all over the industry. Engineers, entrepreneurs, C-level executives, and everyone in between, representing carriers, leading manufacturers and suppliers, analysts, enterprise, media, and more. So, to wrap things up, if you know exactly how your organization is planning to move from a product-focused to proprietary system to a solutions-based ecosystem embracing a monetizable and scalable open-source platform layered on a wide-scale hypervisor-driven virtualized network along a burgeoning value chain leading to the industry's digital transformation of new revenue-generating services, then you're good. You can skip it. Otherwise, if you want to be part of the path forward, we'll see you in Dallas June 2nd through the 4th at TIA 2015, Network of the Future.
Thank you.